So this morning, the Jerusalem Post is making a startling claim. They're claiming that President Donald Trump openly gave northern Syria to Turkey. So let's go there and have a look at it and see what the implications just might be. Go to Jerusalem Post first. Okay, the title is Trump. Turkey promised to eradicate whatever is left of ISIS in Syria. Okay, it's all yours. We are done. Trump reportedly says to Erdogan. This is an article by Tova Lazaroff, written yesterday. Turkey promised it would ensure that ISIS was defeated in Syria, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Twitter as he continued to underscore the connection between Istanbul and his decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria. President Erdogan of Turkey has very strongly informed me that he would eradicate whatever is left of ISIS in Syria. And he is a man who can do it, plus Turkey is right next door. Our troops are coming home, Trump said. Outgoing U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis on Sunday signed the order to send home the 2,000 U.S. troops stationed in Syria, the U.S. media reported. CNN reported on further details of the link between the decision and Turkey. It provided details of a December 14th telephone call between the two leaders, which Trump agreed to the pullout. It's all yours. We are done. Trump reportedly told President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. On Sunday, Trump reported that he had just finished a subsequent phone call with Erdogan and that two countries were coordinating the U.S. troop withdrawal. I just had a long, productive call with President Erdogan of Turkey. We discussed ISIS, our mutual involvement in Syria, and a slow and highly coordinated pullout of U.S. troops from the area. After many years, they are coming home. We also discussed heavily expanded trade. You see, cozying up, cuddling up, warm and fuzzies with the tyrant of Turkey. Senator Bob Corker, the influential Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said he was saddened by Trump's withdrawal decision. All right, and the rest of this is really meaningless, in my opinion. Okay, so it is done. We are done. It is all yours. Okay. Now, what are the implications here? Remember when Donald Trump said that ISIS is, how did he put it, the words that he used? He used defeated, but he used another word that is a qualifier. It's really doesn't mean defeated. Okay. Now, just yesterday, the UK Express, probably in response, was it yesterday? No, this was today. So the other report was yesterday. So today, Rebecca Paring on the UK Express reports ISIS return. Sick terrorists make terrifying comeback just a year after being crushed. Now, I know you read this, the headline does not really match the story, but the headline was designed to counter Donald Trump's statement. Okay. However, folks, bear in mind the fact that the surge in Iraq to counter ISIS came because somebody said we had defeated ISIS. And then, of course, ISIS came back with a vengeance 3 times stronger than they were to start with, and they had to do the surge. Where did ISIS get its strength from? Let's go to, let's see, is it this one? Yes. The Guardian. This was back in November 2014, this article. right? All right. Inside Islamic State's oil empire, how captured oil fields fuel ISIS insurgency. Coalition airstrikes have not stopped the militant group from earning millions of dollars a week from its Iraqi oil operations. The Islamic State has consolidated its grip on oil supplies in Iraq and now presides over a sophisticated smuggling empire with illegal exports going to where? Turkey, Jordan, and Iran. So while a lot of people were claiming that ISIS was created by the US, and that is not entirely true. There are certain people within the US that would benefit from that, and they had something to do with it. One has recently expired. But for the most part, it was Turkey and Iran, and Jordan too, but mostly Turkey and Iran. Now, and I have mentioned that if Russia really wanted to get rid of ISIS in Syria, they could have easily done so already. Just like if the United States really wanted to, they could have gotten rid of ISIS completely in Iraq. So what's going on here? What keeps ISIS alive? Money. Money, folks. And to hand off the US occupied portion of Syria to Turkey is like having the fox guard the hen house, you see. Now, who knows the reason behind this? Who knows? But right here. So do you think that Turkey is going to go in and destroy ISIS in Syria? Are you kidding me, folks? So, see, this brings me to something. I've been talking about how you cannot, how do I put this? People think they know the sequence of events with the seals in Revelation, the trumpet sounds in Revelation, and the vials in Revelation. And I say that we don't. And the reason why I say that we don't is this. I've mentioned one particular passage in Revelation 10. But there's another one here that really tells a story. Right here at the sixth vial, it says, "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keep his garments, lest he walk naked and see his shame." Why is this inserted in the sixth vial? You'd think, based upon how people look at the seals, the trumpets, and the vials, you'd think that everybody would know by now. So why is he saying, "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that is watching during this time"? That means there's a whole bunch of people sleeping naked in their bed and not watching. When I see naked in their bed, I mean figuratively and literally. How can this be? How can this make any sense at all? I mean, after all, let's go to, let's see. What I want to do is I want to look up "come as a thief" and see how many scriptures we find. All right. All right, we'll start with Matthew 24:43. All right, verse 42. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your master does come. But know this, if the good man of the house had known of what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be you also ready, for in such hour as you think not the Son of Man comes. Okay, so this is in the same context as what we're reading here, there in the sixth vial. Now, but then we have to, if we want to get deeper context here, we have to go to verse 36. Now that day and the hour knows no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only, not even the Son. But as in the days of Noah. Are you telling me, folks? Think about this for a minute. Are you telling me that right here in the sixth angel pours out his vial, in that particular time, are you telling me that where he says, behold, I come as a thief, blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments? Okay, are you telling me that that day will be as the days of Noah? So also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all. Are you telling me that the days of the sixth bowl of wrath, people are not going to have a clue? Look, I'm just drawing parallels here. And the reason why I ask this is because of what is written here in verse 12 of the sixth vial. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, and that the way of the kings, or the king, the ruler, singular, of Anatolia is prepared, so that the path, a way, a road of the leader of Anatolia is prepared. So the question is, I'm asking a question, folks. I'm not telling you I have the answers. It is written very clearly. It is written very clearly in Revelation 10 that we do not know. But if we are we have to watch. Pay attention. Look both ways. Don't assume that trumpets have yet to sound, or that the first trumpet has yet to sound. Don't assume that the first vial has yet to be poured out. And I'll explain to you why you can't assume that. And John, several times in the book of Revelation, refers to water as people. The waters in which the great whore rules over are multitudes of peoples, is what it's written. And where it talks about the dragon cast a flood after the woman, we know what that is. That's armies. Isn't that right? I'm not saying this word right here is water, is armies, but you can't rule it out now, can you? So what if it was just like the other two passages in Revelation? What if it was an army? Then you'd read it like this. The sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the army that was there was dried up or left, so that the road, the way of the king of Anatolia might be prepared. And then what happens? And then what happens? And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth. This is out of Europe, out of Romanist Europe. Is it in response to this? I asked the question. And and you know what's really interesting, folks? Frogs. Frogs. I cannot help but. Is it this one? Now, this particular article here, the headline, once again, does not match the article. Okay? Which is why I take this article as a grain of salt. And of course, I take South Front as a grain of salt, but sometimes they do report on other reports that are accurate. But their headline here, like I said, does not match the, oh, shoot. Did I forget to do screen share? Let me see. Anyway, you heard what I said. Let me do screen share. Let me show you South Front here real quickly. All right. So here, Syrian war report, December 24th, France plans to replace U.S. forces in Syria. Now, I know why the French are called frogs, folks. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, look at the scriptural significance of this particular passage here, where it talks about three unclean spirits like frogs. Oh, that's got to be the French. No, no, folks. But I do think it's a little interesting, you know. But I'm not gonna make that comparison. No, I'm not gonna do that. So three unclean spirits, which means there's going to be a command that goes forth out of the guy at the Vatican, probably in response to this particular passage. The sixth angel pours out his vial upon the great Euphrates, and is it water? Now, folks, you got to understand that there has been several times over the course of the last 7 years when Turkey did shut off the water supply of the Euphrates River. Okay? Now, what did that do? Not much. There was no significance there. Can the Turks cross the Euphrates River without shutting off the water of the Euphrates River? Yes, easily. Easily. It's not necessary to turn the water off on the Euphrates River, which is why it is possible, using John's own comparison of water with peoples that he done twice before, you can safely use the same comparison here. So that the way of the kings of Anatolia, there it is right here, Anatolia. Anatolia means a rising of the sun, hence east, okay? So you can use Anatolia, which is Turkey, or you can use east. Got it? So then, as I said before, this appears to trigger a call from the fault. Why would this be happening? Why do you think this is happening? Is it because of ISIS? They have returned before. Is it because of what is written here in this article on The Guardian? Inside Islamic State's oil empire, how captured oil fields fuel ISIS insurgency, and how Turkey benefited from Islamic State, and how lines and lines and lines of oil tankers were headed to Turkey. Let's see here. There we go. This is on Zero Hedge. How Turkey exports ISIS oil to the world. All right. This was back in 2015. Now I know that Zero Hedge has an anti-Israel slant, but you can get some of your news from there when they're not bashing Israel. Over the course of the last 4 weeks or so, the media has paid quite a bit of attention to Islamic State's lucrative trade in stolen oil. On November the 16th, in a highly publicized effort, U.S. warplanes destroyed 116 ISIS oil trucks in Syria. 45 minutes prior, leaflets were dropped advising drivers, also, Washington is absolutely sure, are not ISIS members themselves, to get out of the trucks and run away. The peculiar thing about the U.S. bomb strike is that it took the Pentagon nearly 14 months to figure out that the most effective way to cripple Islamic State's oil trade is to bomb the oil. Now, you can read the rest of it. And here we go. Meet the man who funds ISIS. Bilal Erdogan, the son of Turkey's president, you see. So clearly, folks, Turkey was working hand in hand with ISIS. And by handing over, look, you can see the headline here. You can look it up for yourself, folks. But clearly handing over Turkey, or handing over northern Syria to Turkey, is going to help the resurgence of ISIS. It's going to do it, folks. Right here in the Jerusalem Post, there's Donald Trump. Turkey promised to eradicate whatever is left of ISIS in Syria. Okay, it's all yours. We are done, Trump reportedly told Erdogan. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So the question now is, I'm asking the question, are we in fact in the sixth era of the sixth vial? And people will ask the question then, well, how can it be since the other vials weren't poured out yet? Then I have to ask the question, oh, really? They weren't? Do you know that for sure? Let's go back in history, shall we? I want to go to Mount Vesuvius again, and I don't know if I'll ever find the one article. There is not a whole lot of information from Mount Vesuvius and its eruption in 79 AD, just only a mere few years after the destruction of Jerusalem. But what has been reported from several sources is this, that it spewed molten rock into the Sea of Naples, and it caused a red tide that absolutely destroyed the Sea of Naples. That's all we know. Why? Because there is not much history written about those days. So we don't know how badly it affected the rest of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. And the only reporting we have is from Pliny the Younger and the other fella, who the elder, who escaped. You see, but it did destroy the Sea of Naples, and it caused a red tide in the Sea of Naples and probably in the entire Mediterranean Sea. Okay, you can look casualties from the eruption. I wish it would tell me what happened. Let's see, Vesuvius. Vesuvius, also called Mount Vesuvius or Italian Vesuvio, active volcano that rises above the Bay of Naples on the plain of Campania in southern Italy. But I know I saw it somewhere. Okay. Anyway, so let's go and look at the vials. Right? Verse 2, and the fourth went and poured out his vial upon the earth. Oh, looky here, folks. And there fell a bad, evil, and grievous, toilsome sore upon men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them that had worshipped his image. Now, as I pointed out before, those are the Christians who do this, who worship the image and the mark of the beast and his image. Now, have you ever heard about the plague of Justinian and the bubonic plague? So this is the first vial. Okay. So let's look at this, shall we? No, I need to get rid of that. Need to get rid of this. The Black Death. Now, this was the second version. This wasn't even the first version, but let's talk about the second version of the Black Death. In October 1347, a ship came from Crimea and docked in Messina, Sicily. Aboard the ship were not only sailors, but rats. The rats brought with them the Black Death, the bubonic plague. Europe had heard of the bubonic plague, which had ravaged Central Asia in the early 1300s, and it's hard to have an accurate description of numbers because throughout the Middle Ages, numbers are generally used poetically rather than accurately. Nevertheless, reports came in Europe that were 20 million people had died in Asia. Knowing what happened in Europe, it was probably an underestimate because there were more people in Asia than Europe. Our best estimates now that are at least 25 million people died in Europe over a period of 50 years, peaking between 1348 and 1350. This was almost 40% of the population. Some estimates say as high as 60%. It was a disaster practically unequaled in the annals of recorded history, and it took 150 years for Europe's population to recover. And what did they call this? They called it, not me. No, not me. They called it the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. They did. What compounded the disaster was that no one knew what the disaster was. The Middle Ages was a time racked with religious fanaticism, ignorance, and superstition. A mysterious plague such as this took on more awesome proportions simply because it was unknown. The plague spread rapidly throughout Europe. It was erratic, skipping certain towns and areas, etc., etc. but notice the time, location, and notice that with the, okay, all right. Now, what does the Black Plague look like? And remember, this happened with the plague of Justinian in 541, 542 AD, with after Constantine caused Europe to worship Apollyon, the mark of the beast, etc. Just over and over again, the Black Plague. Now, let me get rid of this because I need to find, I hope I didn't lose it. Right? I have to look Black Plague symptoms. See if there is pictures. I had one website up there that had pictures. All right, let's see if it's. Is it this one? Yes, it's this one. It has a picture. What do you see? Swollen lymph nodes, or bubo, after what they said was a symptom of the plague. So let's go back and look at this particular passage. A noisome and grievous sore, a wound, an ulcer upon men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. Now, this plague went all from the Byzantines all the way to the outer edges, all the way to the ends of the other side of the Mediterranean Sea, all over the entire region. Now, there were claims that Jews were not affected or were less affected. Which side, which point is true, we don't really know. However, if we read this part here, after a short while, there arose a new idea among the European Christian masses why the Black Death was ravaging their land, because they allowed the Jews to live in the midst as Jews. This reason became widely accepted. Therefore, in many communities throughout Christian Europe, the formula and prescription for saving the population from the plague lay on either converting or exiling or murdering the Jewish population. You see, they did not repent of their sins, did they? No, I don't mean the Jews. I mean the Christians didn't repent of their murders or sorceries and their fornications. From 1349 until 1390, the Jewish communities of France, Germany, and England almost disappeared completely. Why? Was it from the plague? No, it was from the murders. In 1350, Frankfurt had over 19,000 Jews. By 1400, not even 10 Jews were left. That typified the situation in many other communities throughout Western Europe. In addition to Christian persecution, Jews were also dying from the Black Death. It is hard to tell whether proportionally more Jews died from the plague or the persecutions. Well, it's obvious, folks. There are other stories that say that Jews did not suffer very much from the Black Death at all. The Christians claim that the Jews died at only half the rate. Even if true, it would then be about 20% of the Jewish population who died from the plague. And even if Jews died at a lesser rate, it can be attributed to what? Sanitary practices of the Jewish law. For instance, Jewish law compels one to wash his or her hands many times throughout the day. In the general medieval world, a person could go half of his life without ever washing his hands. According to Jewish law, one could not eat food without washing one's hands, leaving the bathroom, and after any sort of intimate human contact. Well, that's a commonly used ritual here, even in the United States now. That has been going on for quite a while. The Jewish law prevents the Jew from reciting blessings and saying prayers by an open pit or latrines and at places with foul odor. The sanitation conditions of the Jewish neighborhood, primitive as it may be by today's standards, was always far superior to the general sanitary conditions. Jewish law also prescribed certain sanitary conditions related to burial of the dead. Leaving corpses unburied not only abetted the conditions that spread the bubonic plague, but typhus and other diseases as well. The Jews, on the other hand, had a unique sense of community that not only led them to feel a responsibility to attend to the sick and dying, but also caused them to always maintain a formal burial society whose responsibility was to make sure that any Jew who died was treated according to Jewish law, including washing the body before it was buried. These are only a few examples of how Jewish law preserved the Jewish people through this terrible, dark period of plague. So even this guy admits that the Jews did not suffer as much from the plague, the first plague that was poured out in Revelation 16. Am I claiming that that is the first plague? You tell me that it's not. Go ahead. I dare you. I'm making no claims at all. But I'm saying if the shoe fits, then wear it. And of course, as you know, the Christians accuse the Jews of poisoning wells. And the Christians, instead of repenting of their evil deeds, only grew worse in their crimes against the Jews as a result of the Black Plague. And the second poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And as I said before, in the Middle Ages, there's not a whole lot of history, but we all know that when a terrible red tide comes, it kills the sea life. It does. Okay? And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and the fountains, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the water say, "You are righteous, O Jehovah, which are and was and shall be to come, because you have judged us, because they have shed the blood of the saints and the prophets, the blood of the Jews and the prophets, and you have given them blood to drink, for they are worthy." And I heard another say out of the altar, "Even so, Jehovah, my almighty and true, righteous are your judgments." All right. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power is given him to scorch men with fire. So this is about fire. Have not fires burned entire swaths of Europe in the course of the last 2,000 years? Well, it even happened in last year. Portugal, Spain, France, and even parts of Russia. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm not saying that this did happen. I'm just saying, look both directions. Don't assume anything. Now, and the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed Jehovah of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. Okay. There was a period of darkness in Europe. And it was caused by an Icelandic volcano. Let's see. Okay, the elusive volcanic eruptions that plunged Europe into the Dark Ages. Byzantine historian at year 536. So this, remember the Justinian plague. Let's look at the Justinian plague. All right, let's do that. That's when the bubonic plague started. When was it? 541, 542 is when it started. It started in the Eastern Roman Empire, especially its capital at Constantinople, the Sassanian Empire, and all the port cities around the entire Mediterranean Sea. And was it 541, 542? Okay. So we go back to this elusive volcanic eruption that plunged Europe into the Dark Ages. And it came about during this year at a most dread portent, and this was only a few years later, folks. A dread portent took place, for the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon during the whole year. And it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse, for the beams it shed were not clear, nor such was it accustomed to shed. And from the time that when this thing happened, men were free neither from war, nor pestilence, nor anything leading to death. Folks, really? Fire leads to death, does it not? This man, the historian, Procopius, said these words. And from the time when this thing happened, men were either free neither from war, nor pestilence, nor anything leading to death. Means every plague of every kind was coming upon mankind. And you're telling me that none of the vials have not been poured out yet? I don't know. But I'm not going to sit here and say, no, they haven't, when there are indications where they possibly have been. Historical sources describing a fog covering the sun combined with reduced growth seen in tree rings suggested that erupting volcanoes caused a dramatic cooling in Europe after the year 536, coinciding with the time of general crisis and local catastrophes, with estimated 25 to 50 million in victims. Some historians even argue that the cool climate accelerated the collapse of the Roman Empire, leading Europe into chaotic times with widespread migrations of people within or into Europe, fleeing famine, diseases, and war. Geologists believe that the two powerful volcanic eruptions, the largest of the last 2,000 years, are to blame. If an eruption is powerful enough to send volcanic ashes and gases into Earth's atmosphere, the resulting haze can shield the surface from the sunlight, causing a drop in temperature worldwide. It remains uncertain to this day which volcanoes erupted in 536 and 540 to 541. So they don't even know. They don't even know which ones it was. They think an Icelandic volcano, but they don't know. They just don't know. They don't know. They speculate. They speculate, folks. My question is, did Vesuvius erupt again? Did Etna erupt? They don't know because they didn't keep records back then. They just don't know, folks. They can speculate. All this is speculation about which volcano it was. They just don't know. But what happened was, I believe, if I understand correctly, that this particular event went on for like 200 years, the days of darkness. Now, when these days of darkness were around, they still had their pains and their sores, you see. And they continued the pains and their sores. Bubonic plague, folks. So if you think that the first vial has not been poured out, I say to you, I'm not saying to you that it has. I'm saying before you cross the road, look both ways. Don't assume a train is not coming. Don't assume anything. Because what is written here in the sixth vial, the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water, which a term that John used for people twice in the book of Revelation, thereof was dried up, that the way, that the path, the road of the king, singular, of Anatolia would be prepared. Where? Euphrates River. And I saw three unclean spirits like the frogs of the mouth, coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the beast, out of the false prophet. This is Europe. For what? For what reason? They will go unto the kings of the earth and the whole land to gather them together in that great day of Jehovah Almighty. For what? To come against Israel. And he says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them to a place in the Hebrew tongue called Megiddo. Har Megiddo, the mount. Okay, so let's look at this. Now, Har Megiddo, I believe, means the mountains of Megiddo, right? Yes. Okay. So we can find this location by just merely looking up Megiddo in today's map. Oh, wait a minute. Is it MIG? See if I can find a map. Oh, look. Look at this, folks. You see that? So Megiddo, there's mountains on this side and the mountains on this side. I believe that's correct. But the Jezreel Valley, let's look at the Jezreel Valley then. Okay? As you see if this is right. So the Valley of Jezreel, oh yes, it goes right here, right near Megiddo. You see that? There it is, Valley of Jezreel. Where is this located? Okay, this is the Lower Galilee area. This is Bashan, or the Golan Heights. Okay? Now you get it? They're going to come in through here and will be met in the Valley of Megiddo, or the mountains of Megiddo, in the Valley of Jezreel, right here, right above Samaria, northern Israel. Okay? So, let's go and see if I can find didn't we just see, I need to get rid of some of these, where France, I believe what's going to happen is ISIS is going to rise up again. And so Europe is going to try to take the place of the United States in Syria. And while this is going on, they will turn against Israel and try to force Israel back to the 67 borders. Al Jazeera says, in the wake of this particular article, world reacts to Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out. UK and France stunned, while Russia and Turkey sense opportunity to advance own agenda. Well, as Trump says, ISIS is defeated. Now, of course, you know who was benefiting from ISIS was Turkey and Iran. You know this. We read about it. And of course, ISIS is going to come back. You see, UK and France stunned. So what is UK and France going to do? Well, we don't know yet. Okay. Trump's declaration that the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, group had been defeated was not endorsed by allies who fought alongside the U.S. in Syria. Rather, to the contrary, officials in France and the UK stressed the threat the armed group continues to pose to their interests. Much remains to be done, and we will not lose sight of the threat they pose. Even without territory, ISIS will remain a threat, the UK's Foreign Office said in a statement on Wednesday. So the question is, what are these European nations going to do about it? France's European Affairs Minister, Nathalie Loiseau, said French forces would remain in Syria for now. And it is true that the coalition has made significant progress in Syria, but this fight continues. I have a feeling, folks. I have a feeling that this is going to lead to the Europeans bringing in their troops. They don't know yet, but it's for them to receive judgment for all the crimes that they have committed against the Jews once and for all. I believe that's what it is. So what I'm saying, asking everyone to do is do this. Do exactly what it says here. for a moment, pretend like you are living in the days of the sixth vial. Just do that. Where it says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. That is written. Isn't that written? Isn't that written in the sixth vial? Okay. Then pretend like you are living in the sixth vial, because you just might be.